got my horror cardi back on. Keep me nice and cozy while I'm reading those unsettling passages. What up, fiction fam? Welcome to Down to Read. My name is Stephen, and today's video is a review of the horror novel written by Ian Banks, The Wasp Factory. This book was written in 1984, published by Macmillan. I understand before writing this novel that Ian Banks was trying to get into publishing some sci-fi novels, however, kept getting rejected. So this book, interestingly, the protagonist is human, set in our world, however, so weird that they're almost alien. I think that was Ian's way of trying to write sci-fi without writing sci-fi. As per all my book reviews, first we'll go over a bit of a summary of the book, then the things I liked, then the things I didn't like, and finally we'll give it a rating out of 5 stars. And you know, if you get 5 stars, bang your status, we might get a 5-star bonus book wrap up. Let's see how we go. So the Wasp Factory is about a 16-year-old boy called Frank, who lives on a small Scottish island and resents his lot in life. Safe to say that Frank is not a nice kid. He takes out this kind of resentment of the life and lot he's been given on animals and other children. He's generally just not a nice person. However, this book is written from Frank's perspective, which gives us an interesting kind of empathy for her, really a kind of monstrous character. Frank lives with just his dad on this island. His mother left him when he was much younger, and his brother's been sent to a mental institution. This island is isolated. There's only a small bridge that connects it to the town. Frank sometimes goes to this town for a drink, but spends most of his time patrolling this island. He's very protective of this island. Frank lives on this island with his dad. His dad spends very little time with Frank. They have meals together, but very few other interactions. In fact, his dad spends a lot of time in his room or his study, which he keeps locked away. And Frank is very desperate to see what is in this study that his dad keeps forever locked. There's a bit of intrigue there. Frank performs rituals with body parts of animals and other scraps, bits of metal he's picked up on the island or the nearby township. Did I mention he's not a nice guy? He uses these sadistic machines and performs these rituals to look for guidance, for answers on how he should be moving forward in his life. The Wasp Factory is one of these sadistic machines, which he keeps in the attic of his family home. Now, returning to his brother, Eric, who was sent away to the mental institution that we mentioned earlier in this video, Eric has actually escaped, and he's on his way back to this island. Now, being the type of brother that Eric is, he calls his family home to let Frank know that he's on his way home. And I would have to say these phone calls between Eric and Frank are probably some of the best parts of the Wasp Factory. The most engaging sections for me, at least. The underlying theme that stood out the most to me while reading this book was the theme of sacrifice. Sorry, phone call. Bit rude of me.
Hello, I've escaped and I'm coming to see you. Getting closer day by day. You haven't forgotten about me, have you? Am I sure you never forget about me?
Who is this?
Eric. Oh, isn't this Frank?
Nah, mate. Sorry, you got Steven here.
Oh, do you know where Frank is? I really need to find Frank. I'm on my way to
sorry,
see him.
Sorry, gotta go. Bye. Sorry about that. Phone calls you get sometimes. Anyway. One of the things I really liked was the phone calls between Frank and Eric. These are the tensest parts of the book. As you see, Frank tries to navigate Eric being at the edge of emotions at all time. Also, Banks' use of dark humor, despite some of the undertones of this book, really do make it a easier read. As do some of the points of intrigue, where you're wondering what's going to happen when Eric does get to this island, or if he's going to get to this island, as well as what's in this locked door that Frank's dad keeps secret and hidden away from him. Finally, I feel like it's a rare moment when a book leaves a lasting impact on us. And there's one scene in particular in this book where we find out about what, and don't worry, no spoilers here, where we find out what happened to Eric and what it is that drove him to madness and ultimately getting taken away to the mental institution. It's really messed up. And it's definitely stayed with me. I wouldn't say it was a fun part of the book, but it's left a lasting impact, and a part of the book you'd be keen to talk to others about, see how they reacted when they read it. Finally, the thing I liked was the setting. The setting of this on like a small isolated island in Scotland, just great. Really kind of brings this claustrophobic feeling to the book. Animal violence, or violence against animals. I get it, it's a plot device, it's important to Frank's character development. However, some of these scenes just drag too long for me. We don't need to see animal after animal being harmed or killed. So those parts of the book, I feel like weren't required in the detail they were written. Also, violence against young children. Again, call me crazy, but not my favorite thing to read about. Again, very important to Frank and his character. I understand why Ian Banks wrote about these sections. However, hard for me with this type of content to strongly recommend this book to a wide audience. Also, some of the scenes in this book are a bit repetitive. There's only so many times I can read about Frank patrolling around the island and have level of interest in it, especially when these patrolling expositions of Frank's aren't particularly eventful. They seem to fill in gaps between the more interesting parts of the story. I give the Wasp Factory 3 stars. There are some really great, captivating parts of the story, and as I mentioned, some parts that will last with me for years, I'm sure of that. But too many scenes that didn't seem to add a lot to the overarching story to me, as well as the violence against animals, and particularly the violence against young children being a dad. Perhaps if I'd read this 10 years ago, it wouldn't be as difficult for me to read some of those scenes. If you've read it, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I hear from some of my Scottish friends who love Ian Banks. They tell me that some of his other books aren't quite as messed up as this, so I'm looking forward to checking out some other books from his catalogue in the future. Thanks for watching. Zhoosh!